The US activates invisible lasers and launches 150 Tomahawks, completely erasing the Iranian fleet in just 10 lethal minutes.
January 15th, 2026, 6:12 in the morning. The Persian Gulf is not blue. At this hour, under the heavy winter atmospheric pressure, it is a sheet of dull, hammered pewter. The air temperature is 15 degrees Celsius, but the humidity is already climbing, hanging over the water like a wet wool blanket. This isn't just weather, it's a tactical layer. The salt spray and fine dust suspended in the air create a complex optical medium, a soup of aerosols that can scatter light and confuse the most expensive sensors on Earth. In the middle of this gray expanse, the USS Gravely, a Flight II-A Arleigh Burke-class destroyer, cuts through the water at 12 knots. It is a 10,000-ton fortress of steel and silicon, silent except for the low hum of its 4 gas turbine engines. To the naked eye, it looks like a ship. To the electronic spectrum, it is a star, radiating radar waves, analyzing the electromagnetic noise of 1,000 commercial vessels. But this morning, the noise is different. The calm surface of the Strait of Hormuz is deceptive. This is the single most critical choke point on the planet. Let's understand what is at stake here. This isn't just a body of water, it is the jugular vein of the global economy. 30% of the world's seaborne traded oil passes through this 21-mile wide gap every single day. If you close this strait, you don't just stop ships. You stop Tokyo, you stop London, you stop the supply chains that keep insulin in pharmacies and food on supermarket shelves. A blockage here causes a global cardiac arrest within 48 hours. The insurance premiums alone for a single supertanker to cross this line now run into the millions. And lurking in the shadows of the Iranian coastline, nestled in the jagged coves of Qasem Island, is the threat that keeps admirals awake at night. It is not a peer competitor navy. It is not a massive battleship. It is the Swarm. The Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps Navy does not fight with heavy steel. They fight with fiberglass. Their weapon of choice is the Bulgamar or the Blade Runner, small, fast attack craft. To a military planner, these are asymmetric threats. To a sailor on deck, they are mosquitoes carrying dengue fever. These boats are cheap. They are built from fiberglass, reinforced plastic, and epoxy resins. They are powered by commercial outboard motors that emit the high-pitched cavitation whine of commercial outboards. They carry heavy machine guns, rocket-propelled grenades, and sometimes they are nothing more than suicide bombs packed with high explosives. They don't rely on accuracy. They rely on chaos. They rely on the idea that if you throw enough cheap plastic at a billion-dollar warship, eventually, the math will work in your favor. They are the moped of death, a buzzing harbinger of terror designed to overwhelm sophisticated defenses through sheer numbers. But the USS Gravely is no longer fighting with just missiles and bullets. It has evolved. Mounted forward on the superstructure, looking like just another camera housing, is the HELIOS system, the high-energy laser with integrated optical dazzler and surveillance. This is not science fiction. This is the new reality of energy warfare. It draws power directly from the ship's massive generators, giving it a deep magazine. As long as the ship has fuel, this weapon has ammunition. It does not run out of bullets. It does not jam. It waits. Inside the Combat Information Center, the atmosphere is frigid. The air conditioning hums to keep the server racks cool. The lighting is blue, casting long shadows on the faces of the young sailors manning the Aegis combat system. They are watching the screens. They are watching the ghosts in the static, and then the ghosts materialize. A cluster of contacts breaks away from the clutter of the coastline. Fast, 40 knots and accelerating. The radar cross-sections are tiny, intermittent, bobbing in the wave. Clutter. But the computer sees them. The math changes instantly. This is not commercial traffic. This is an intercept vector. Let's pause the clock here. We need to understand the physics of the violence that is about to happen. Because what happens next isn't a movie gunfight. It is a collision of material science and thermodynamics. We are about to witness two very specific technologies clash. A high-energy laser against a fiberglass hull, and a tungsten penetrator against an engine block. First, the laser. Hollywood has lied to you. When the HELIOS fires, there will be no red beam. There will be no pew-pew sound effect. The beam operates in the near-infrared spectrum, specifically at 1.064 microns. The human eye cannot see it. It is invisible death. In the heavy salt spray of the Gulf, you might, if you were standing right next to it, see a faint, ghostly heat shimmer, a distortion line in the air where the atmosphere is being ripped apart by thermal blooming. But the target will see nothing until it is too late. When this invisible beam hits the fiberglass hull of an Iranian speedboat, it doesn't punch a hole like a bullet, it unzips the molecular bonds of the material. This process is called ablation. Here is the microphysics of that millisecond. The laser energy couples with the epoxy resin matrix of the boat's hull. The white gel coat vanishes instantly, flashing into vapor with a sharp crack. Then, the resin beneath boils. It outgasses violently, creating a high-pitched hiss as pressurized gas erupts from the plastic. The fiberglass loses its cohesion. This is called delamination. The hull buckles outward, and then the ignition. The gaseous resin catches fire. The structure glows cherry red, then white hot. To the observer, the boat simply starts to smoke, thick gray smoke turning to black, and then it becomes a floating inferno. It is a rapid thermodynamic disassembly. But the laser is the scalpel. The hammer is the Phalanx CIWS, the close-in weapon system. You have probably seen movies where this weapon shoots a stream of red laser-like tracers. That is false. The US Navy does not use tracers in the Phalanx anymore. They use the Mark II 44 Enhanced Lethality cartridge. This round is a sub-caliber tungsten penetrator encased in a plastic sabot. When it leaves the barrel at 3,600 feet per second, the plastic sabot peels away, creating a violent cloud of white puffs in front of the muzzle. The projectile itself is a dense dart of tungsten, heavy and hard enough to shred a tank engine. And the sound? It is not a machine gun. A machine gun goes rat-a-tat. The Phalanx fires at 4,500 rounds per minute. That is 75 rounds every single second. The human ear cannot distinguish the individual shots. It hears a continuous, low-frequency roar, like a giant electric chainsaw ripping through the sky. Before it fires, you hear the pneumatic whine as the 6 barrels spin up. Whine, then the roar, then the spin down. It is the sound of absolute denial. So here we stand. On one side, a swarm of cheap, fast, fiberglass suicide boats, relying on the chaos of the littorals. On the other side, a floating supercomputer armed with invisible light and a tungsten wall of fire. The cost equation is absurd. A $20,000 improvised fast attack craft against a weapon system that costs thousands of dollars per second to operate. But the cost of failure? The cost of failure is a burning carrier and a global depression. The distance is closing. The rules of engagement have just been unlocked. The safety covers are flipped up. The physics are about to take over. 6:12 and 30 seconds. The bridge of the USS Gravely is silent. The kind of silence that hurts your ears. The only sound is the hum of the cooling fans in the consoles and the rhythmic breathing of the tactical action officer. On the optical sensors, the Iranian swarm boats are now visible. 12 of them. Boghamar fast attack craft. They are moving in a pincer formation, attempting to encircle the destroyer. They are closing at 45 knots. That is 51 miles per hour on water. At that speed, the hull of a small boat slams against the waves with the force of a car crash every 2 seconds. The crews inside are bruising their kidneys, holding onto the grab rails, their eyes stinging from the salt spray. They think they are the hunters. They are wrong. The mistake happens at 6:13. One of the lead boats cuts aggressively across the bow of the Gravely. It is a provocation, a test of nerves. The Iranian pilot pushes his throttle forward, intending to buzz the American warship. He never completes the maneuver. The engagement control officer on the Gravely does not wait for a missile lock. He touches a glass panel. The HELIOS system engages. It starts with the Dazzler. This is the soft kill. To the Iranian pilot, the world suddenly vanishes. A blinding, strobing green light erupts from the superstructure of the destroyer. It is brighter than the sun. It expands to fill his entire field of vision. His retinas are overwhelmed. He screams, throwing his hands up to shield his eyes, but the light is everywhere. He is effectively blind. He jerks the steering wheel. The boat yaws violently to the left. Then the operator on the Gravely switches modes, from dazzle to burn. The power spikes. 60 kilowatts of directed energy focus on a spot the size of a quarter on the boat's engine cowling. There is no beam, no red laser, just invisible physics. On the fiberglass hull, the white paint instantly vaporizes. A sharp crack echoes across the water. The epoxy resin beneath the paint begins to boil. A thick, grayish-white smoke erupts from the plastic as the material outgasses. The laser unzips the molecular bonds of the boat's structure. The heat transfer is absolute. The fuel lines inside the engine cowling melt. Then, the spark. The gasoline ignites. The boat does not explode, it blooms. A sudden, violent fireball engulfs the stern. The vessel loses power, drifting sideways, burning fiercely on the gray water. The swarm hesitates. They see their laid boat burning, but they cannot see what set it on fire. Panic sets in. They break formation, scattering like roaches when the lights turn on. Some turn back, some charge. The Gravely decides to end the debate. Weapons free. Engage all surface threats. The Phalanx CIWS wakes up. The radar atop the white dome locks onto the nearest boat. The pneumatic motor screams, a high-pitched whine rising in pitch as the 6 barrels spin up to speed. Then the roar. Brt, a 2-second burst. 150 rounds of 20mm tungsten leave the barrels. There are no red tracers, only a violent cloud of white puffs at the muzzle. The plastic sabots peeling away from the penetrators. The air in front of the Iranian boat turns into a wall of heavy metal moving at 3,600 feet per second. The effect is horrific. The tungsten darts do not detonate, they shred. They turn the fiberglass hull into a sieve. The engine block is pulverized. The crew is erased. Behind the boat, the water erupts in a line of white geysers as the rounds pass through the target and strike the sea. One burst, one kill. The Phalanx slews to the next target. The whine drops, then rises again. Burt! Another boat disintegrates. It is mechanical slaughter. The swarm is not being fought. It is being deleted. But this skirmish was just the trigger. The provocation has been documented. The red line has been crossed. While the Gravely cleans up the surface threats, a much darker reality is unfolding 100 miles away, deep beneath the surface of the Persian Gulf. The USS Florida, an Ohio-class guided missile submarine. It hangs in the black water, silent, motionless. A leviathan, 170 meters of stealth. The captain receives the order, Alpha Strike, target package, Bandar Abbas Naval Command and Control. This is not a defensive move. This is a decapitation. Spin up tubes 1 through 4. Solution set, tube 1, shoot. We need to slow down time here. This is the engineering of the apocalypse. The launch sequence of a Tomahawk missile from a submarine is a delicate dance of pressure and fire. Inside the missile tube, the Tomahawk is resting in a MAC canister. The firing circuit closes. Phase 1. The cold launch. The missile does not ignite inside the sub. That would kill everyone on board. Instead, a gas generator fires. A massive pulse of pressurized steam and gas ejects the missile. Inside the submarine, the crew hears a heavy, dull thud, like a giant hammer hitting a tire. Thump. The missile shoots upward through the water, encased in a protective capsule. It rushes towards the surface, a dark shape rising from the deep. Phase 2. The broach. The capsule breaks the surface of the Gulf at a 45-degree angle. Explosive bolts fire. Pop, pop, pop. The capsule covers blow away. Gravity tries to pull the missile back down. For a split second, it hangs in the air, a dead weight. Then, the Mark 135 solid rocket booster ignites. Crack! The sound is deafening. A thunderclap right on the water. The silence of the morning is shattered. The solid fuel burns with a terrifying violence, spewing a thick, dirty gray smoke that hangs heavy in the humid air. The missile screams skyward, but this is not a single launch. This is a ripple fire. 5 seconds later, thump. A second missile broaches. Crack! 5 seconds later, thump, crack, the sea boils. One by one, the missiles erupt from the depths. It is a rhythmic industrial assembly line of destruction. Splash, roar, smoke, splash, roar, smoke. Within minutes, the sky is filled with gray trails. The boosters burn out and fall away. The small turbojet engines ignite. The roar fades to a high-pitched whine, like a distant airliner. The missiles drop low. They hug the water. Sea skimmers. They are flying at 550 miles per hour. Their target is the port of Bandar Abbas, the home of the Iranian Navy. Standing at the pier is a Mauj-class frigate. 1,500 tons of warship. The crew is scrambling. They have heard the distress calls from the swarm boats. They are trying to get their radar spinning. They are too late. The first Tomahawk arrives. It does not aim for the waterline. It aims for the superstructure. Impact. The 1,000-pound warhead strikes the steel plating of the hull. It does not explode immediately. It penetrates. The delay fuse waits for 5 milliseconds. The missile punches through the outer bulkhead, through the crew quarters, deep into the ship's gut. Then, detonation. The blast is contained inside the steel skin of the ship. The overpressure is catastrophic. Bulkheads blow out. Glass shatters for miles. The hull creates a bellows effect, expanding and contracting. The frigate does not lift out of the water. That is a movie myth. Real physics is crueler. The ship shudders violently. It heels over, listing 20 degrees to starboard. Smoke pours from every hatch and vent. It is not sinking yet. It is dying. It is being gutted from the inside out. But the missiles keep coming. The next wave flies past the burning frigate. They pitch up, climbing over the dock cranes. Target, the oil terminal. The massive storage tanks holding millions of gallons of crude oil. The Tomahawk dives. The impact is different this time. When the high explosive warhead detonates inside a fuel tank, the chemistry changes. The initial white flash of the explosive is instantly swallowed by a seep, angry orange. This is a deflagration. The crude oil ignites. A fireball the size of a city block rolls upward. It is slow, heavy, and oily. Thick black smoke, darker than night, billows into the sky. It blots out the sun. The shockwave hits the city of Bandar Abbas. A Wilson cloud, a white dome of condensed water vapor, flashes into existence for a split second as the pressure drops. Windows shatter 3 miles away. The ground trembles. Back on the USS Gravely, the radar screens are clear. The swarm is gone. The horizon is stained with black smoke rising from the enemy coast. The captain lowers his binoculars. The silence returns to the bridge. But it is a different kind of silence now. It is the silence of the graveyard. The sensors analyze the damage. The data is cold. Iranian naval capability in the sector, neutralized. Swarm threat, erased. Strategic fuel reserves, burning. The cost? The U.S. Navy expended roughly $80 million in munitions in under 15 minutes. The cost to the enemy? A generation of naval infrastructure. The smell of the battle will hang over the Gulf for weeks. A mix of ozone, burnt fiberglass, and the heavy, sulfurous stench of burning crude oil. The stock markets in New York and London are reacting before the smoke even clears. Oil futures spike 10%. Insurance rates triple. This wasn't a battle. It was a physics lesson. It demonstrated the terrifying gap between the old way of war, men in speedboats with RPGs, and the new way. The way of directed energy, algorithms, and precision strikes delivered from beneath the sea. In modern warfare, if you can be seen, you can be killed. And if you are fighting the U.S. Navy, you will be seen. The USS Gravely turns back to its patrol sector. The Phalanx spins down. The laser cools. The ocean has swallowed the wreckage, returning a deceptive calm to the surface. But remember, in the era of algorithmic warfare, silence isn't peace. It is merely the reload phase before the next digital storm breaks. Fair winds and following seas. I'll see you at the next flashpoint.